Bachteal, and I'm here with Abbey Mitchell. We're here to introduce you to our Breast Cancer Pathways worksheet and to give you an idea of where it came from and how we think that it can help you to guide your choices. Abbey and I met in 2019. We were both in a Facebook group after reading Jane McClellan's book, How to Start Cancer. And Abbey had decided at the time that she wasn't feeling that she was understanding everything at the depth that she wanted to. And she decided to go off on her own and start her own little group to kind of dig deeper into things and talk about the concepts in the book. At the time, we also realized that the book was quite general in terms of it. There were some things, dribbles and drabbles of things about specific cancers, but basically what Jane was telling us to do was to look for the phenotype of our cancer and then use that phenotype, which is basically what kinds of pathways is the cancer using for its growth. Because not all cancers use the same pathways. So at that time, we met another breast cancer thriver, Lauren Gu, and she had put together this cute little Google Sheets document. And we were pretty entranced by her little document, and we all got together and thought, well, this is something that we can add to and share. So that's where it started, and we've had others along the way who've helped us to gather the research that goes into this thing. What we want you to understand is, first and foremost, that this is not a clinical guidance document. This is a document that is summarizing the research that we have found on the pathways. Some of the research, a lot of the research is done at the basic science level on cell lines for different types of breast cancer. And then sometimes the research will get funded further to do some animal studies to look if it actually kills cancer cells in an animal and reduces tumor bulk. Then if you're really, really lucky, there might be some clinical trials, but there's very little clinical trial data because, of course, there's no financial incentive for this. But we feel that it's really important to understand what research is out there, because that research is not making it to the clinical practice of most doctors. Now, you'll find integrated doctors who are trained, especially naturopathic oncologists, who are trained to use herbs and sometimes off-label drugs in their practices, but they still may not be taking the approach that we are in terms of exhaustively searching literature. And when we did start this literature search, one thing that we ran across pretty early on was called the hallmarks of cancer. And what that ended up doing for us was changing the way that we decided to organize our worksheet, because it used to be organized along Jane's 5 hallmarks. But as we got into it deeper and deeper, we realized that it was a lot more complex than that. And likely that, she made a good call to try to simplify so that she would reach people as best she could. But when we were trying to organize the research, it just didn't fit neatly. We felt we needed more. So we then broadened our categories, which when we go over the worksheet itself, we'll go over those and show you where they are, to include all the hallmarks of cancer that have been identified in Dr. Hanahan, and I'm forgetting the other name. He's the one I always remember, but there's a second author. In his original paper, which was in 2001, and then his updated paper in 2011, and now he's done some more really recent updates on the microenvironment in the tumor, which is all published in peer-reviewed literature and pretty much considered the gold standard for understanding cancer. So it's big stuff. So when you click on the link to the worksheet, you're going to see that it's organized into, well, when you click on the link, and then the next thing you do, in fact, I think maybe this is a time for Abbey to go through how to bring up the worksheet, because some people can get confused about how to do this if they aren't familiar with using Google Sheets and a Google system. So that might be the right thing to talk about right now before we get any further. So if there's anyone out here listening who hasn't even gotten to the step of downloading the thing, you can pause our chat here, and then you can go with Abbey step by step on how to bring up a copy for yourself and create your own Google Drive to keep it on. So Abbey?
Yeah, sure. Before we finish off this little recording, I just want to reflect what I think you've shared is that today you're just encouraging people to take a look at this page that presents the worksheet before you even come to download it. Have a read through and understand that it's not a prescriptive shopping list, but the organisation of research that's particular to breast cancer and the subtypes of breast cancer. As we each all we're given a particular subtype when we're diagnosed, and not just one subtype or not just generally for breast cancer. So note that there'll be research that pertains to each of the subtypes in there, and that the research hasn't made its way through to clinical application. So your doctors and integrative doctors may not be aware of this research yet, yeah? But it's more for helping us as patients understand the pathways, theory and approach, the looking at our cancer through the hallmarks of cancer. And the hallmarks of cancer are an extension of Jane McClellan's Metro Map. They're really what she simplified in order to get her book across to the layperson. Yeah, so she would have drawn on this same research, but then she simplified it. We've gone back to the original research that she simplified and included it all. But there's still more. That's what you're saying. There's still an update to these hallmarks that now includes the environment in which the tumour's drawing on its energies, the conditions in which the tumour exists. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he actually had done some other things in terms of factors that are important. And because we were trying to do the worksheet in a way that allowed us to assign substances to different pathways, some of the things in the hallmarks in terms of that aren't the actual hallmarks, but are things that he identified as important factors are going to be woven in through our worksheet. We might at some point change some things to include more of that. Right now, the only thing that is in there that is kind of part of that microenvironment is this cancer stem cells section.
I noticed too that in the latest version of the worksheet, we at the beginning of each pathway, you have written notes and given hyperlinks that take the person reading to the PubMed study that really looks at the importance of that pathway for your subtype, your breast cancer subtype. And when we're looking at the importance for the subtype and finding research around that, it seems to be in relationship to the resistance or the drug resistance to standard of care treatments. So
right. Also, which is often why someone with an early stage cancer will be treated, and then, for example, when women are on aromatase inhibitors, and then they're all seems to be fine and dandy, and then the cancer comes roaring back. Why is it resistant? So we will be talking about those particular aspects, pointing out to you where you can find that information within the worksheet when we go through the specific pages.
Okay.
But yeah, this really, in the end, what we're hoping you can do is use this as a way, almost like a confirmation to yourself that, I've got a lot of things going on here that are helping in the pathways that I need to help, rather than using it as a prescription to say, oh, I must take this and this and this and this, because honestly, no one can take everything that is in each of these pathways. It would be too much such a pill load that you would never leave the house. But it does help you see where maybe there might be some weaknesses in your protocol, whether one choice might be better than another one. Yeah. And we do have some future plans to rank these substances more in terms of the quality of the research that we have that's in our long-term plan. For right now, everything's in alphabetical order. We can't tell you whether one thing is better than another. But this at least gives you an idea of where, a substance that you've been hearing about might fit in and why you might want to consider it.
So there'll be future recordings. We'll wrap this one up here, and I will put together the second recording, which is just about giving support to people with the technical side of downloading the worksheet. Maria and I'll come back for the third discussion recording, which will actually be about the worksheet and the information in there.